today is we're just going to go through, and for you out there in cyberspace that are watching us live streaming, we appreciate that. We appreciate some staff members that are out there. So council, we're going to just go through this agenda. We thought rather than have staff members come to the meeting, the regularly scheduled council meeting, we would get through the questions that we need for them in this agenda meeting. So I'm just going to run through. I believe Richard Johnson may be out in the lobby, and we'll bring him in here in just a few minutes. First order will be approve the minutes. The second will be a resolution to suspend public participation for agenda and non-agenda items till further notice due to the shelter-in-place order by the Alabama Department of Health and the governor, and it will automatically expire once that shelter-in-place order has been lifted. Now, the reason we move that to number 2 on the agenda, it's usually further down, and it's after public participation. So we had to move that to the top of the agenda to disallow the public participation. But I'll assure the public, if you're watching, that we're not trying to cut out public participation forever. We're just trying to keep everybody safe. And we have a room of 10 people right now, so we're at the limit that we could have. And we won't put anything on there that we know is a hot button issue, or that we know that we're going to receive a lot of public participation, and that includes public hearings, which I'll just go ahead and jump to. That's number 7 on tonight's agenda. So that is a further postponing of all public hearings of the City Council, Planning Commission, and Board of Adjustments, postponed because of the shelter-in-place order. So number 2 and number 7 kind of go hand in hand. Number 5 is an ordinance to repeal an ordinance establishing the vote counting devices for use in all municipal elections. If you have questions, Lisa, the clerk, will be here to answer that. But I believe that what they're doing is just changing the types of voting machines that are being used.
That's correct.
And we have to adopt that via ordinance. So did I get that correct, Lisa?
That's correct. We have to specify each type.
Okay.
And evidently they changed the one that the auto mark, which the handicap uses.
Okay. Item 6 is an ordinance to adopt regulations for small cell technology facilities in the city of Fairhope. This has been through our, if you recall now, we have a telecommunications consultant that's been looking at everything from small cell tower to cell tower leases. And he's been on top of this. He's probably the top man in the South. He works with the state of Alabama. He works with the League of Municipalities. He works with the state of Georgia, with the state of Mississippi. Mr. Greg Fender, he's just widely recognized as an expert in the field, and he helped us craft this resolution. It's our ordinance. It's very important, I believe, that we adopt this tonight, because there are things going on at the state level which we will not be allowed to do if we don't adopt this prior to it being adopted at the state level, which will probably occur in May. And rather than take a chance that we somehow have a meeting canceled between our second meeting in April council between now and the beginning of May, when we get to this item, I'm going to ask council to suspend with the rules and vote on this tonight. So I'll ask you to do that. I know that there was a lot of back and forth between Mr. Fender and Eric Cortinez, so our building director, and also Hunter Simmons, our planning director. There was a lot of back and forth between those guys and Mr. Fender and Ms. Hanks all the way up to almost to press time today. So a lot of effort went into that. Lisa, did you get all the changes that were necessary?
You have a copy in front of you?
Right. Okay. This is the very latest, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number, we've already covered number 7. Item number 8 is just authorizing me to negotiate and execute a professional engineering services contract with GMC. This is just more due diligence for the corner property purchase. There was an environmental assessment done, and we wanted to just do a few more things, just according to many experts and engineers. They said you just need to do your due diligence. And so I don't think that we will spend all of that money, but I'm just, and since I've been working on the closing for the property, it just made sense to authorize me to negotiate that. And I've been in the middle of all this environmental assessment and what we need to do and what we don't need to do. So I'll just ask you to go ahead and appoint me to do that. Any questions on that? Okay. Item number 9 I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson to come up real quick and explain item number 9, and then also any other agenda items that he would need to speak on.
Good afternoon. It's so nice to see people in person for a change. I hope everybody's doing well. This is somewhat of a housekeeping item that we have to do. This was a TAP grant. This is the sidewalks that were built on Manley Road and Twin Beach. The contractor ran over on the contract time, which enacted liquidated damages. And since this is a federal aid project, every time the contractor was working, the inspector for the engineer had to be present. So his cost overran by a little under $9,000. But as part of that, the contractor was fined liquidated damages in the amount of $9,900. So this is net neutral to us for the total project. We're paying $9,000 more in engineering fees and $9,900 less in construction cost. And the other good news, and I shared this with the details with Kim when I got it from the engineer, the total project netted out a lower cost of about $92,000 for us. We had some value engineering and some underruns, so overall a good project for us. And the grant was capped at a maximum of 80% of $383,000, and the actual project came in at $392,000, so it's almost right there at 80/20, which was originally anticipated. So we just need to do this so we can correct the engineering agreement and get them paid. Council President, if it's okay, I'll go ahead. Number 10 is just a renewal of our standalone concrete quickcrete bid. Baldwin Concrete has been a good vendor. Our streets department recommended that if we could stay with them another year. Price has been good. They've been very responsive on deliveries and service there. Item number 12 is just an extension and renewal of the disaster debris removal and disposal contract that we established in 2018, and we do recommend to go ahead and renew with that.
Let me step in real quick on that, if you don't mind, Mr. Johnson. I just want to...
You have a new resolution in front of you also.
Yeah, I want to make you aware that, yeah, you have a new resolution in front of you, and that would extend it, have an ending date of November 30th, 2021, which makes sense. It was currently ending like in the middle of August, which is prime hurricane season, and you don't want to be dealing with, awarding a disaster debris removal contract in the middle of, and it was just the way they were set up going back years ago. So going forward, I would envision them after this one, they would go from, say, December 1 to November 30th, which would make more sense. So this one, when Clark brought this to me, I thought, yeah, let's change that. That makes a lot of sense to extend it to the end of hurricane season.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 17 is under the umbrella of Public Works. This is the Haven. Their air conditioning system went out, and the big issue there was it is kind of an oddball system in the sense that it has a unit up in the attic space, and we just did not have the capabilities of creating the ductwork to adapt a more modern system. So this is from one of the U.S. Communities contracts for a turnkey to replace that whole split unit system. For that, and that is an unbudgeted item, meaning that we did not have that anticipated in the maintenance budget for the Haven facility. And then finally, item number 18, as you know, we were awarded an A-Trip 2 grant this past fall, which is for adding turn lanes on County Road 44, Twin Beach at US 98. And this is the official funding agreement. It is the standard agreement. And one thing I do want to note that the numbers did change in our favor. We had calculated that we were going to have to pay the indirect cost to ALDOT, which works out to be about 13% of the project. They're letting us do this a locally administered project, so that goes away. So that is a cost that we do not have to bear, since we will let the project in-house, bid it, and then apply for reimbursement up to that match amount. Any questions?
No. Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
Thank y'all, and be safe.
All right, thank you for being
All right.
here,
Have
and
a good
be
evening.
safe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, council, I'll go back and see if there was any that we missed. We covered 8. We covered 9. And number 10 is self-explanatory, I believe, there. Number 11 is self-explanatory. Number 12 we just covered. Number 13 is routine. number 14. Mr. Montgomery? Jeff, are you out there? Jeff, you want to cover, this comes up, the annual service agreement for the dispatch console. That is the Motorola 26,659.
Yes,
that's just something we have to renew every year, right?
That's exactly it. Every year we've got to renew it. So they, what that's for is support the dispatch consoles, hardware and software. Any maintenance needs, any problems that come up, this support contract handles that.
Any questions for Mr. Montgomery, council? Okay. Hey, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for being here as well. Okay. The gas meters. Mr. Allison, are you out there?
Yes.
Okay, so just for the gas meters, just business as usual. This is just part of our budget amount that we set aside to field test so many meters, and we've chosen to try to do 80 right now.
Yeah, this is just a budget amount for our annual certain percentage of tests we have to do in the field. These are the rotary meters, so they're the larger ones, and so we have to have a contractor come in and do that testing.
Okay, and I'll note, council, we budgeted 20,000 to test so many, and this is 12.8, so well under budget. Item 16 was to vote to purchase the fire truck that was budgeted at a cost of $517,000 at a 60-40 split, and with the city paying up to $331. That's what we had budgeted. The fire department, volunteer fire department, was going to pay $200,000. And when I spoke to them, they said the urgency is that if they don't get this order in soon, the price of that truck's going to go up, and they ultimately have to have it. We postponed it last year, and we got them to agree to pitch in $200,000, which was extremely generous for a volunteer fire department. I will also say that we are going to use, if Kim was here, she'd tell you that we can use impact fees, and we have impact fees that can be utilized for the fire department in the amount of $1 million right now. Did you want to add something?
Oh, no, I was just going to reiterate the fact that, so the need for the purchase is huge right now, due to the fact that we're already 2 price increases past.
Okay.
So when we got this quote, we locked it in, and we were already 7% each price increase per this dealership, so we're already saving 15%, which is roughly $50,000. And this truck is fully equipped, so once it comes, it's ready to hit the road. So we don't have to add any extras. So.
All right. Any questions? Yeah, we appreciate y'all every
Thank y'all.
day.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Be safe out there. Okay, we have covered item 17. Now we've covered 18 with Mr. Johnson. Number 19, this was what was brought to us at the last work session by Mr. Allison. Mr. Allison, again, is standing by on the computer. Do we have any questions for Mr. Allison regarding the creation of the tree crew? Michael, I want to make sure I quoted you right. You said that the bids came in, the lowest bid was $1 million, is that right?
It was 960 some thousand, if I remember. It was above 900,000. It was between 900 and $1 million.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for that, council? Okay, we are going to ask you to add 2 items to tonight's agenda, and you should have copies of them. There is a resolution to revise and approve compensation and job classification plan. This says for the building department. I believe that's supposed to be probably for the electric department.
Yes, it is.
You see how those copy-paste errors get you when we started talking about rates recently?
At 4
That's a
o'clock.
prime example of how that
At 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
It was a rush item.
Yes. Well, let me say that, this came in late to council, to the city council, to be put on tonight's agenda. And Councilman Robinson and I talked about this at length, and it was seemed to be a lot of changes that were being proposed when it came to us. And so we had denied it being put on the agenda. And the mayor pushed and pushed, and I believe that that Jay worked with the mayor closely on that all the way up even through today. So appreciate that, Councilman Robinson, and trying to get something that would be beneficial to the city. And this was what they came up with, this being Jay and Mr. Allison, and also, I guess, the mayor as well. So Jay, do you want to run through this? Basically, we're just trying to remain competitive, as I understand it, with our competition and not lose qualified employees in the electric department. And so the proposal is to raise the grade of an apprentice from a grade 20 to a grade 22, and a lineman from a grade 23 to a grade 25. So you want to elaborate, Jay?
Yeah, I know, you said it pretty well just then. And Mike, if you're on there, feel free to jump in. But there were multiple positions that were being considered for pay grades. This is something that Mike brought to us at the last work session. And there was some misunderstanding as to what positions it would actually entail. Mike and I discussed it today. It seemed like these were the two that were most of the most immediate need, and so this is what has been proposed in these upgrades. And this keeps, based on the numbers, this keeps Fairhope competitive at these positions, which is what we're looking for, so that we can keep what we consider to be the best staff available. Mike, did I say that right?
Correct. And then we, like I said, the misunderstanding was, you know, being in the industry, when I think of linemen, I tend to think of the whole series. And I think Councilman Robinson and the mayor were just thinking of that one particular job title. So when we really dug into it, these two, the lineman apprentice and the line worker, are the two most critical ones that we need to evaluate. We've got the Auburn study going on that hopefully will elaborate on the other positions. The lead lineman is vacant right now. We promoted the lead lineman to assistant superintendent. So we've got some time to wait for that one to come through in the Auburn study. And before we did anything with that position, and then, you know, the groundman we can look at a later date as well.
Okay. Very good, Mr. Allison. I do appreciate you working with Councilman Robinson, you know, throughout the day today to make this happen so that we can protect our employees. So thank you again for that. That's very, very important. I know everybody's super busy.
Right, and Council President, just your question from the work session, we did take a quick look at the medical costs, and from what I have from Leslie from HR is we're kind of right in the middle of the road. There's still a couple that pay 100% of the family insurance, but a lot of them are paying similar to what we are or even more on the employees.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, and I asked Jay about that a little bit. He gave me a little insight into that today as well. So thank you again. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to ask you to add an executive session to tonight's meeting. This is going to be nothing more than an update. I can only brief one of you, and I've briefed Councilman Robinson on the purchase of the clock property, just kind of where we're at, and we're just trying to finish that up, what it's going to take to close that deal up. So I will give you all a quick, hopefully 5 or 10 minute update on that. I don't expect to take any action. There shouldn't be any action needed as we come out of that, but it's kind of, you know, it's been a little bit dynamic lately, and I want to keep everybody up to speed on that. So, questions, council? Okay, we can go ahead and adjourn the agenda meeting, and let's get here a few minutes before 6 o'clock, and we'll start tonight's meeting on time. Thank you.